excited to have you on and have a conversation. For the folks that maybe missed our previous conversation, gosh, it's almost been a year now.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind just kind of giving people a brief background on yourself and a little bit of more context around job stacking.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Rolf. I wrote a book called Job Stacking, detailing basically a framework that allows normal people to work multiple full-time jobs at the same time without, crashing out, without burning out, or being detected by employers, right? And it has little by little developed into more things as things are wont to do, right? Like you start something and it becomes not something else entirely, but like a different version of the same thing. And so right now job stacking is about basically turning employment into a business, right? Like sort of like treating it like a business for yourself. It's not just about like work, like, working two jobs. It's about like having like a machine where you're always getting new clients, new jobs, and that's how you increase, like how you really scale it. But yeah, we can get into that later. But that's the long and short of it.
Love it, guys. And for context for the Desperados that were able to join today, or folks that are going to listen back to the recording, like all of the inspiration around SDR contract stacking was based on the book and based on Rolf's body of work as well too. So we're definitely getting the chance to speak to one of the engineers and the pioneers of the space. And I kind of have some questions, I guess, podcast style. If we can run through a couple of these, then I'm sure people are pretty excited to get some questions, Q&A session, maybe let's say the last 10 to 20 minutes at the end of the
Sure.
call.
Happy, like I told you, open to anything. So if you want to do it podcast style, we can do it.
Love it. Let's get into it. So, let's talk a little bit more about the philosophy and the mindset, and then we can get into a little bit more specific detail. So, it's like, generally speaking, Ralph, most people are kind of taught to climb the corporate ladder, right? But it's
Right.
one ladder at a time. What was kind of the specific moment, or whatever you want to say, red pill or glitch in the matrix, that made you realize, hey, you could actually just climb multiple ladders simultaneously?
Sure. Well, I guess it's, like as things tend to be, it's multiple facts at the same time that all of a sudden coalesce into one insight. So, number one, I would say is seeing how my dad was treated by the corporate world. So, my dad, my father, without wanting to dox him, he was a high-level executive. He was the general manager for an entire region of the world of a big, a big conglomerate, a big company. Number one, like it's seeing like what happened with my dad, right? Like what happened with my father, because he was technically at the top or near at the top of the corporate ladder or like the career ladder as like as we understand it, right? So I kind of like put that in my back pocket, like because I was still going through school at the time. And then it was just a series of experiences in the actual employment world itself, right? And I'd say the big moment, right? I always talk about how I wanted to, like buy a home basically. And I started dealing with the mortgage stuff, and then I realized like, but wait a minute, so like I'm supposed to because I'm a software engineer. I'm a software engineer by trade, right? Like by profession, I should say. That's what I got my degree on. My degree in, and that's what I had been working on, right? Like I was a full stack engineer. And I realized like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be in this privileged field where it's like I'm supposed to be making so much money. And if you're single, sure, okay, maybe. But I had a wife, I had a kid, and I realized, oh, all right, so like actually it's a bit of a struggle just to accomplish a basic goal like owning your own home, right? Like I have to go through these financial institutions and they're treating me like a dog. They're treating me like proof to us that you're not some thief or whatever, when I'm sure like the actual like the high level guys, the drug dealers and that sort of stuff, they don't deal with, like they buy their stuff cash, right? And so it's like here I am, just a normal honest working class guy, and I'm being treated like I'm suspect, like I have to like dance in addition to the bank. And then the thing is that I had to do a little dance in addition to go the next step, right, in the ladder, right? Because I was a, let's say, before senior developer, right? And just the hoops that they made me jump through to earn the senior title, that was a completely radicalizing, yeah, that was a radicalizing experience for me. I was like,
Right.
what? is this? Like why can't I just like have, like you have certain, like you've spent certain amount of years working, right? Like you have demonstrated certain amount of proficiency. Like it's just like immediate, like automatic promotion. It was like no, it was this whole song and dance. I had to create a project. I had to like be like work at like 200% for like 3 months to finally be recognized. Like, oh yeah, here's your senior developer title. Whatever you were. I don't even remember how much the raise was at that point. And that's when I was like, no, this gotta like this hierarchy is totally screwed. As the kids say today, it's cooked.
Right.
And there's gotta be a better way to do this. And so I feel that the advantage of the big advantage of being in software development at the time is that it was very remote friendly or remote forward at that even back then, even way before the pandemic, like 2015 to from 2018 or 2000, even to 2019. um it was very typical to have tech roles already implement hybrid like hybrid schemes, right, where you went to the office 3 times a week or 2 times a week. And because I could play with that, I could start running experiments. And then I had the thought of like, well, what if I get a fully remote job and I work it the days that I stay home, right? Like that I'm not going to the office. And then the days that I'm in the office, I just work the office job. And that's how I
Right.
got started basically. But that's the story of how this whole thing was born. I always tell people I did not invent the concept of moonlighting, right? Like I did not invent the idea of working more than one job. But the difference, the unique point or like the unique contribution of job stacking is that it's not moonlighting. It's like multiple jobs, but they're not sequential. You work them simultaneously. That's the big breakthrough, right? Like it's not like, oh, go get another shift, right? At the store or whatever. It's like, no, you get all the shifts that you can in the same 8 hour workday, basically.
So let's talk a little bit about taboos. And for the folks that are maybe, this is a new concept that's introduced to them, they're maybe on the fence, right? I saw a pretty prominent podcast here in the US, kind of like a political podcast. They were talking about the case of the individual that I believe was from South India on a
Mhm.
H-1B visa, right? Running multiple jobs. That news went viral here recently as well, too, right? So, um, a lot of corporate noise around the ethics of job stacking. How would you define the line between someone like yourself that was a high performer, that was efficient at their job, that could fulfill on multiple positions versus someone that's kind of taking advantage of the system and like quiet quitting or they're getting fired every 3 months?
Yeah, and I mean, no hate to, no player hating to the guy that did that, right? Like, and if you, you can get away with it, I don't know. But the main point of job stacking is that it's informed by a Christian ethos, basically, or like a Catholic theology, where we are simply ignoring specific demands that are unreasonable by authorities that don't have actually or by figures of authority that don't actually have the authority to demand those things, right? Or that it's unjust. And the idea is not to screw over your employer. Like we're not taking revenge over like we're not fighting against the machine or like raging against the machine. Let's put it like that. The idea is like, listen, at the end, this is all labor. The cap that you put on my ability to do business with other entities that are not yourself, that are not the particular employer, is completely immoral. And the only way employers could get away with it was the logistical fact that we were stuck in the office, right? So it's like they could just, it was like they could take advantage of that fact. But once we are free from the office, right, like where we are free to manage our own time, the idea is, like what's wrong with, what's the problem with just performing, doing a good job, performing satisfactorily in each job, and then just stacking as much, as many as you can, right? I do talk about there is a place for churning, right? Like there is a place for kind of like trying to stack as much as you can and like trying to, do the minimum, right? But the minimum is a conversation between you and the employer, right? And so I always say that, like if you feel like a job is not a good fit, it's just better to quit than to try to drag it out and like get fired, right? Like there's a lot of I get that question all the time. It's like, do you just wait until you get fired? And I say like, well, you can do that, but that's actually very annoying because you don't just get fired. It's like you get dragged through the mud and then you get fired. So it's like easier to like if you don't feel like the job is a good fit, that you cannot actually meet the demands of the job. It's just easier to quit, right? So that's the main difference. Where I'm not trying to we're not trying to screw over employers. We're simply we're simply not going by the crazy entitlement or the crazy claims, right? The demands that they put on us, which, sometimes they're not even realistic, right? Because it's one thing what they say they want or what they say they expect, and then the other, another what they actually in reality expect, right? So the main difference is that we don't go with the attitude of like, oh, I'm gonna defraud this business, basically. It's more like I'm going in to, with the idea of figuring out what's the actual minimum of productivity that they're happy with, right? And then providing that, or maybe even a little bit more if you're feeling generous, right? Like if you want to provide that, and then just stacking more jobs on top of it, right? But yeah, I'd say that's the main difference, right? Like the idea is not to run like a gigantic scheme where we're just like defrauding your identity with the employer, that sort of thing. Like that's a completely different game. And
Right.
I don't want to be a player hater, right? But that's the main difference.
So this is kind of an interesting concept, like especially just working with people inside of the community, and obviously in the sales space, we operate with different kind of mechanics compared to on the product side. But at least in my experience, and I want to hear your thoughts around this as well too, in terms of a strategic advantage, right? Like when it comes to sales, contract stacking helps us get better at our craft because we're having more reps and more exposure. Do you see that being translated to your field of work and on the product and on the engineering side as well too?
Yeah, absolutely. So at first, job stacking was about getting as many advantages as for the employee as possible, right? And it was like employee centric. But as time has gone on, like as time went on, and more people have been doing, and I've been working directly. I've started coaching people on this. This consistent pattern of like, wait a minute, I'm actually better at my job thanks to stacking multiple positions at the same time than if I had, like I'm actually gaining way more experience. I'm becoming way more adept at what I do, and it's logical, right? Like maybe from the get go, right? Like when the concept was originally introduced, that wasn't necessarily on your mind or my mind, right? Like it's like, oh, this is actually going to make us better at what we do. But that's what ended up happening because it's like a time capsule, like or the hyperbolic time chamber from like Dragon Ball Z, right? Like where it's like
Right.
time gets compressed, right? So it's not just the compression of money where you're summoning money from the future into the present, you're also summoning experience from the future into the present because you get exposed to so many different ways of doing things, whether it's good patterns, right? Like good, the best ways to do the, best practices or worst practices, right? So you get exposed to how different businesses do different things, different companies manage different aspects of the business, different fields, even, right? Like I know you guys do tech contracts and stuff, but so in general, job stacking, you can be, for instance, a software engineer that's in the fintech sector, but also in the healthcare sector, and then seeing how like those two fields of the economy. Even if when you're doing technically the same job, it's a completely different job depending on the field and the sector and the needs of the, like how that market moves. It just completely supercharges your experience as well. And so now, I am talking about more and more about like, hey, job stacking actually is not just about benefiting the employee or the worker. It actually allows this benefit to the employer as well. And I actually have a personal anecdote about this because now I have a team, right? Like before it was just like me with the book and the online course and that sort of thing. But now I have an entire team because I'm dealing with, like I'm helping a lot of people, right? Like I'm coaching a lot of people. And one of the things that I do is like I let the guys that work for me, they can do job stacking, right? Like I'm not gonna go ahead and do the thing that I criticize employers for. It's like I go ahead and tell them like, listen, you can do job stacking in the open, you can get another job. All I need you to do is like, fulfill your commitments to me, basically. Like do the thing that I'm paying you to do. And I don't care if you have other jobs. And so what happened was that I had a success manager, right? Like a customer success manager that he went and got other jobs. And the skills that he gained in those jobs, like better skill, better Slack messages, for instance, like something as simple as that, like better, more effective communication sending Slack. He got the practice at some other place, and then he brought it to my business, and he became a way more valuable asset to me. And all I had to do was I didn't have to pay for any training or anything like that. All I had to do was give him the freedom and count with him on him having enough agency to gain more experience, like become better at what he does or some aspect of what of what he does, and then just like I reap that reward, right? And I basically did nothing except give him the freedom to do it, right? And so like I personally like I'm putting my money where my mouth is, but it's like even for my business, I've seen the benefits of that. It's not just me talking, like making stuff up.
And it sort of puts people in a situation, or the independent worker, where they're forced to be more efficient if they have multiple jobs or they have multiple quotas, right?
Yeah.
And it's a good litmus test to see if you're going to be if you can make it happen, right?
Yeah.
So let's kind of switch gears here. So let's talk about kind of the initial reaction to job stacking. You're like, okay, this sounds pretty great. I would love to double my income, see if I can make it happen. But every stacker's nightmare is going to be a double booked Zoom call or meeting, right? Like, talk about that kind of common objection to job stacking and like how a professional like yourself would handle it.
That's so funny because yeah, people are scared of the conflicting call thing, and I came up with this idiom, this maxim, however you want to call it, which is I call it the paradox of conflicting meetings, which is the more important your presence is in a meeting, the more power you have over the schedule. And the less important your participation or your presence is in the meeting, the less power you have over the schedule. So at the end of the day, it's something like you don't need to worry about because if it's like, for instance, let's say this call, right? I'm talking a lot in this call. This is what I would call, and for me, it's an active call for me and for you, Fidel, because we're doing the talking. It's a passive call, passive call for everybody else because mostly what they're doing is listening, right? Now, it's a little bit different because everybody here is interest in in the topic that is being discussed. But for instance, if you had an all hands meeting at a company where it's just the president talking about how the company did that quarter or whatever, if you're just like a normal dude, you're not in the executive, like you're not an executive of the company, it doesn't matter, like whatever, you just care about your paycheck. You can almost shut off that, like completely shut off your brain to that meeting. It's like that meeting doesn't happen, right? Now, of course, in that kind of meeting, you don't have power over the schedule, right? Like you guys that are here as passive listeners, you have no power over the schedule. You either could make it or you couldn't make it, right? And the problem is like in a job, you're supposed to be able to make all the meetings, right? But again, the difference is, all analogies break down a little bit. But Fidel and he and I discussed the schedule, right? And so like he and I came up with a time that worked for the both of us. And so if this time hadn't worked for me because I had some other conflict, it could be a personal conflict or it could be some other call or whatever, I would have just told Fidel like, hey, dude, like let's just reschedule. And so it's the thing with conflict. So that's what I call the paradox of conflicting meetings, which is like the meetings that are scary, which are the active ones, the ones where you have to talk, where you have to present, where you have to share your screen. You have power over the schedule on that one, right? Like, or you will tend to be like 99% of the time, you will have power over the schedule because if you're the presenter, how are they going to do the meeting if you can't make it, right? And
Yep.
so it's like people confuse in their thought they kind of like flatten all types of calls and meetings into one kind, and they're all thinking like, oh, what if I have to talk, in two places at the same time? And it's like that really is going to happen, and when it happens, there are things we can do to manage it, right? Like you are not completely helpless in that regard, because it's very unlikely that you're going to have consistent conflicting active meetings where you're always going to have the camera on and or are always going to be talking, right? Like where you can't get out of the conflict. And for the other kind of meeting, the passive meeting, it doesn't matter if you have three of these going on, right? Like it doesn't matter if you have four all hand meetings because all it matters is that your name shows up on the call and that's it, right? Like and that it's very little impact, right? And so that's something that employers, for instance, don't realize that it's like they waste a lot of time, a lot of our time with pointless meetings where we don't need to be there, right? Like it's like the information is irrelevant to us. But people should not, you just don't be scared, right? Like there are now, I mean, they should be scared in a sense that I do think that most people that get caught working multiple jobs, they get caught not because of a background check, but because of they mishandled a conflict, right? So I'd say that it is reasonable for people to be scared, right? But once you understand the framework, right? Like once you have the theoretical knowledge, right, of how to handle it and what the actual how the territory actually looks, right? What the outlook is, then it shouldn't deter you. It shouldn't deter you to try to stack jobs because it's something that's totally handleable, manageable. It's not something that is gonna break the your ability to work multiple jobs.
I love it. Talk to us a little bit about context switching, right? I love
Mhm.
that concept you previously mentioned. You're sort of pulling money forward, right? Like that was money you were going to earn if you were to work, for example, 3 years in your field in a single job, versus if you get three jobs and you work them simultaneously, you're earning that same amount of money with less time. So because you are doing that, and the advantage is also the rapid exposure to best practices and further refining your skill with more repetition with those multiple jobs. Like, talk to us about burnout and context switching. Like, what sort of what's kind of your response to that? If there's a hedge at all, or is the game plan, let me try to job stack and reach a financial goal and exit?
Okay. I mean, I can start from the last thing you said. That's totally doable as well. Like job stacking is not a goal by itself, right? Like you do job stacking because you have a particular goal in mind, right? Like in my case, I started with I want to buy a home and I don't want to have to go, beg a financial institution for it. I need to be able to save enough cash so I can buy it cash, right? That ended up not happening, by the way. Like that, it took a long detour. When I started making real money, I realized like there's a whole world of like investment and opportunities that are hidden from the normal wagey. Let's put it like that. Like the wagey path is that you're supposed to do the the financing through banks and stuff, right? Like you're
Yep.
not supposed to invest seriously. So just spoiler, I ended up not actually buying the home cash or anything like that. I invested my
Wow.
money on a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, so like you were saying, like the job stacking can be something that you do for a couple months, right? Like, oh, I have a bunch of debt, like credit card debt that I want to get rid of. So I just get, I don't know, five jobs or something, and I work them for 3 months, and now I'm set, right? But to avoid, I think the causes, of burnout, it's low level, consistent amount of stress, right? Like, so what happens with burnout is that people have a certain, like a high rate of consistent stress, right? Like because if you work in bursts, right? Like if you sprint and rest, you don't burn out, or it takes a lot, like you can last a lot longer. The problem is if you have like this low latency stress all the time, anxiety, like it's not necessarily like you're a nervous wreck, right? But it's like this low level of anxiety, like the next meeting, the next thing, like the next paycheck. What am I gonna do? Like does my boss like me? So job stacking uh, actually helps prevent burnout because when most people burn out from their job, they do it because they are overly invested in that job because that job is a single point of failure. So when
Mm,
you have a very important aspect of your life dependent on a single node, right? Like you have a single point of failure, right? That's fragile. That causes fragility, and that causes when you feel fragile, right? You have a lot of anxiety because you don't want the thing to break. You don't want the thing to fail, right? And so that's what happens with normal employees, normal single employee people, right? Like the normal employment paradigm is that you're expected to make the work or the job fit. Like well, you're supposed to make the job work, right? So like you have a bad boss, well, sorry, you can't just quit, right? You have to make it work. You have to see how you handle it, right? Like, oh, workload, they're making you work overtime, you gotta take it. Toxic coworkers, you gotta take it. Bad incentive infrastructure, you just gotta take it. You gotta take it. And so that's what burns people out, and they don't realize it, right? Like that's also what has people working longer than 8 hours, even if they have a single, one only one job. And you go like, well, how, like if I'm going to stack two jobs, I'm going to behave the same way. Well, obviously you're going to burn out. And so this is another category error that people think. Like people project this idea of the stressful single job onto like, oh, I'm going to have two jobs that are going to be the same. And it's like when you do it, when you actually start stacking, you realize that you actually stress a lot less, because even though you have more work, you have a lot less anxiety because you now don't have a single point of failure, right? So now it becomes more about like, if the job doesn't fit, if the job is not a good fit for your lifestyle, for your needs, right? You just drop it. You just quit because you don't depend on that single job, right? Like maybe you depend on the structure, right? Like on the system of job stacking, but that system is it's robust. It's maybe even anti-fragile, right? It's not fragile because you're always getting new leads, new opportunities. You're always interviewing. You got your you got your eye on the market. You got your fingers on the pulse of the market. You know what's like you know what's coming down the pipeline, right? And so if you lose a job, I actually say that when you're job stacking and you get fired from one of your jobs, the feeling is of relief of oh, like I get to have a little vacation now, right? Like because you didn't go down to zero, like you're not in any risk of ruin, right? Like of just like your life being ruined. It's like, oh, you temporarily got more free time basically. And
Right.
so that's the key. And so if like we can get into like then how to handle the multiple jobs, right? So that you don't fall into that where you're like over delivering all the time, or like you're stressing out about a particular job or multiple jobs at the same time, right? But that's the key. The key is that anxiety in employment comes from the fact that you are very vulnerable. Your position is very vulnerable. And I can get into the history of wage labor, which is something I've been writing a lot about, which is like wage labor is actually very low status historically. You were basically above, like barely above destitution if you were a wage laborer, right? Like you were, it was seen as like, oh, you don't have enough largesse, you don't have a household that can support you, so you have to sell your labor all the time. And unfortunately, most of the Western Hemisphere got tricked into becoming, becoming wage slaves, basically becoming wage laborers, and we think we have it better than ever, but we really don't until job stacking. Like job stacking is like the flip, like actually making wage labor work for the laborer. But anyway, like it's a bunch of stuff. I can go on a million tangents if you don't stop me.
Yeah, no, honestly, really interesting concept. Would you mind just expanding a little bit more on that concept of wage labor and the history behind it?
Yeah, sure. Throughout history, right now we live on very unique times because we live on the Western Hemisphere at least. I mean Europe, the United States, Canada, Australia, Japan, like developed economies and even developing economies like Latin America, right? Like at least the big cities of Latin America would fall into that. We live on what's called a market economy, which means that we don't produce, our households don't produce anything or barely anything that we need. And to do anything, right, like we have to go through the market. And a symptom of this is what I already spoke about. Like, well, in the past, you would just build your own home, right? Like your family would, like the Amish do, right? Like the Amish go and they build whatever they need a barn, they build the barn themselves, right? Like they don't go and buy a barn, right? Or pay a company to do it. But we do, right? Like if you want a home, you have to go through a bank, or you have to go to the market or the real estate market and buy it, right? You need food, you don't grow your own food, so you go to the market to buy food. You need clothes, you don't make your own clothes, you go to the market to buy clothes, right? So this situation is completely ahistorical. Throughout most of history, how the economy was not market, or how things function was not a market economy. It was what's called a subsistence economy, or a household subsistence economy. So that means that the household produce, and when I mean household, I mean like the entire family, multifamily home, or multifamily sets of homes, right? They would produce what they needed for themselves, and then something very specific that they couldn't produce, for instance, like say like metal tools, right? Or like very specific kind of like tooling, or more grain, something like that. Let's say that you wanted to have like more grain, right? Like that's when you went to the market and get, or a book, for instance, like right, like you wanted to buy a Bible in the 13th century, right? Like you wouldn't make a Bible yourself you wouldn't bind a Bible yourself in your household. You had to somehow get it, right? Like you have to go and buy it, right? But the market was very constrained, right? Like most people, most like the core economic unit of the of what do I say, like the nation. I'm going to say nation, but it's not the correct term, but it's so that it's easier to understand. Like the economic unit of society, like society is better than the nation. The economic unit of society was the household, right? It wasn't the market. It wasn't like you had factories and then everybody went to the market, right? And so there was very little wage labor, right? Like there was very like people did not have jobs. Like people, there was no jobs because nobody was earning money because money was marginal, right? Like you didn't need money because the household produced what it needed, right? So like you didn't need money to go buy clothes. Like you could make the clothes at home. At worst, you bought the raw materials, right? Like you bought the fabric, right? Like that's the extent that you engage with the market, right? And so so people had this household economies, right? And so when you engage in wage labor and you actually sold your time for money, it was understood that you were having a bad time. It was understood that you were like, like you were not, you were refusing to beg, right? So instead you kind of like did work, right? But it was understood that you were so poor that you didn't have a household that could support you. And so therefore it's like, well, like you got to work for money, poor guy, right? Like it's like, well, like you're a poor fella, right? Like you're a poor guy because you have to work for money. You can't work for subsistence. That changed in the 19th, right, late 18th, 19th century proper. That's when it really started to take hold. What happened is that you had the Industrial Revolution, and factories needed workers and they needed a lot of space, right? Like they needed way more property and just resources to produce, right? Like the if you compare a factory as an economic unit with a normal household, obviously the factory is much bigger, right? So what happened is basically that the factory ate up a lot of, or needed to eat up a lot of this household, a lot of these common property or household properties and household economies, right? And so many governments in Europe, most notably France, that's why France had such a problem with like socialist uprisings, by the way. Like a lot of socialist writers, a lot of socialist sympathizers lived in France and fought in France, and they had huge issues with it. Even today, right? Like France is famous for constant strikes and kind of a perennial labor dissatisfaction, right? That comes because this period of what's called enclosure, which is when peasants, right, like normal peasant society, and this I use peasant non-derogatorily here, it's non-derogatory. When normal people got taken out, literally like just expelled from their property and brought to work into factories, right? So they destroyed the subsistence model to create the wage, the factory model and the wage model and the what do factories produce, right? Like so that's the other part of the equation. Factories produce commodities to be sold in the market in mass, right? Like that's the thing. Like a commodity is a product that is meant to be sold in the market. It's not just something, for instance, there's a difference between a shirt produced by Nike and a shirt that you make at home, right? Like they're technically they're both shirts, but the thing produced by Nike is a commodity because its goal is only to have exchange value, right? First, or have exchange value first, and not necessarily use value. A shirt that you make yourself, the value isn't that, well, not only that you made it yourself, but in the use value that it produces, that it gives you, right? Like the fact that you're going to use it to cover yourself, right? And so if you have commodities, you need a market to sell them. And so this is how kind of like it all happens at the same time. You can't have a market without people having money. So how do we give people money? Oh, well, they got to work for it, right? And so we pay them the money to produce the merchandise that they're going to buy later, right? Because that's what they need. And so eventually, like at first, it was a complete scandal. People were very scandalized. This is why, again, like I said, especially in places like France, you have a lot of violent disputes, like violent encounters between laborers, normal people, and the government and factories, right? Ultimately, the big factory model won, right? And it became normal to be a wage laborer now, right? And so eventually it just got normalized, like it just got normalized to the point that now it's not even in living memory that we didn't used to be this way until quite recently, actually, right? It's only when you go to a place like rural Peru, for instance, or rural Mexico or something like that, and you see a more like what's called third world or whatever, You see more traditional ways of an economy operating, and they're not money based, right? Or money's marginal, right? Like the market is not the center of the of production, or it's not the goal, right? Like the goal is not to live so that you can engage with the market. And so, in a sense, we have all been dispossessed, right? Because now we all are historically, right? Even though we have a lot of consumption goods in the market, right? Like we have a bunch of technology and we have a bunch of commodities, right? Like what people always say, like air conditioner and TVs and whatever, and flat screens TV and stuff are conditioned as beings dependent on a wage would be scandals to people from the past. They would see us as like basically like slaves, like we're not free, right? Like they wouldn't see our consumption levels and think that we had it good. They would think that we were like slaves, right? And so, but there's nothing we can do about it. Like right now,
Right.
like we have open funnel into this, so we just got to make the best of it, right? Like, and so it's like, like one thing is me explaining this to you and kind of like lamenting this development. And another is like, well, what do we do about it? And my answer is like the only way out is through. It's like, oh, you want me to be a wagey? I'll be a turbo wagey. I'll make so much money that I gain my independence quickly instead of 60 years like the system is supposed to work, right? Like how the system was expecting me to do it.
Yeah, 100%. And you can even draw the comparison to today, where maybe back in the day it was seen as a status or maybe more wealthy or powerful, however you want to put that title on it, of not necessarily having a job and being more self-sustainable. Today as well too, where it's like high net worth individuals, and even as like, I'm continuing to my professional career, network with people that are high net worth individuals. A lot of them don't necessarily have jobs either, right? They're just day
No.
trading on their portfolios. They're just investing into assets, asset ownership. So that's kind of like the secondary plan or the escape. I'm assuming you sort of alluded to as well too. It's like utilizing job stacking, as you mentioned, inside of the system, and then reclaiming that independence through. I maybe am putting the answer in your mouth, but asset ownership, is that the answer?
Yeah, and actually, if you look at the super wealthy, they don't engage, they don't behave like us. Like they don't go to the market for their stuff. They do high-end artisanal stuff, right? Like they don't have, you know what I mean? Like they don't go to the market and then because it's like, oh, I have a bunch of money, then I'll buy, instead of buying one shirt, I'll buy a million shirts. Maybe some of them do, right? Like, but their model is not to consume it even harder or more. Their model is going back to subsistence, right? So their state produces anything that they need. They grow their own food. They make their own stuff, right? And so you see that it's like that's the goal. Like even if you're gonna imitate how the rich, the really wealthy behave, right? They don't behave like a wage laborer with a high worth or like with a high salary, with a high income. It's a completely different game, right? Like they
Yes.
they do completely differently.
Yeah, everything is handcrafted. And you can even see this,
Uh-huh.
maybe it's a stupid example, but with fashion, right? Like high net worth individuals, they don't necessarily buy the big brand names like a Louis Vuitton or a Gucci. It's actually seen as like a low status thing. They purchase, handcrafted one of one t-shirts from France and shit like that.
They get like a tailor
Yeah.
from Italy that has been, his family have been tailors for 500 years, and they go
Yep.
and they get one shirt made, or like even let's say 10 shirts, but it's like 10 shirts by this tailor. They don't consume harder. They change their pattern to be they move back to subsistence, and that tells you everything that you need to know
Wow.
about what wealth is.
Wow, that's incredible. Um, okay, so last question here, and then I'm going to open it up to Q&A for the people here. So, um, I suppose like the last question here would be like, when it comes to the roles that you've seen and the more successful longer term relationships, like being able to job stack for 6, 12 months and beyond, like what are some of those characteristics of those jobs that people should be looking for, whether it's at the actual job listing or the interview process? Like what are some of those signals based on your experience that, hey, this is going to be a good stable opportunity that I can stack on top of?
I think you can't know in advance. You can try to filter out by some red flags or try to identify certain green flags. But the truth of the matter is that there's a lot of uncertainty and instability in the world of employment. That's precisely why job stacking is necessary because you can't count on any one employer to remain the same. What I mean by this is like you may get a job that through every stage of the process it was green flag after green flag after green flag, or I'd like to say good omen after good omen and that sort of thing. And then you sit down and you work it 3 months, and then what happens? And this happened to me. Your boss quits and they go to another company. They assign you a new boss, and that new boss completely changes the dynamic. And so everything that you identified as good before, it's like now you're at base level. Like now you're zero because you have a new boss and they change everything. So this happened to me actually when I worked. And it was more than 3 months, right? Like it was more like when I was 5 months. And I was very happy. I was working for a triple A video game company. I won't say which one, but it's like a gamer job. Like that's awesome. Like like I was doing automation, right, for this big triple A video game company. And that's exactly what happened. Like my boss it was a small team, a subdivision of one of their games that they were automating the testing for that game. So it's not all manual QA. And this is the most technically demanding job I've ever had. Like imagine automating a video game, like automating testing a video game, right? Like because you can automate certain actions, but like issuing commands to the game where it's like move the sword here, and like hit this thing here. Like it was quite fun. It's like I was very happy with that job. It was one of these jobs where I was like, oh, I'm gonna get married to this job. It's like I believe in employment again. And then what happened? My boss that he had interviewed me, right? Like he had handpicked me to join his team. He got a better offer from another bigger, from another equivalent triple A company, but he got a way better deal. He left. In comes this new guy, total asshole, incredibly annoying, very corporate man minded. And the job basically went from a dream to nightmare and getting fired in 3 months, right? And so what I'm trying to, you shouldn't not, you need to abandon, my advice is abandon this idea of the job. Like just see a job as a paycheck, right? And you're just trying to see how many paychecks you can get before it becomes unbearable and you have to quit or they let you go, right? Like, but there's no stability in the job market where I can tell you, like, if you land one of these jobs, oh, you're gonna have fun for the next 3 years. That does not exist, right? Like that does not exist. What you can do is be exposed to as many jobs as you can, accept as many offers as you can handle, right? Like as you can feel you can manage, and then eventually those jobs that are good will start appearing just by the fact that just by exposure, just by being exposed to and being open to those opportunities. And those jobs will be the ones where your boss is a man, will tend to be. Where your boss is a man, you are surrounded by other men on the team, right? Like it's not there's very little female involvement in the direct operator, like your day to day. Let's put it like that, right? Like there can be women in some other aspects of the company, obviously, but very important. Your boss will tend to be male. They will be very chill about the equipment that you use. All right. So like a big green flag is that they let you be a BYOD, bring your own device to work, because that means that they're not interested in installing a bunch of spyware on your computer to make sure that you are compliant or working, like that you're working your 8 hours or whatever. They're just happy to receive the output that you provide, right? As long as you meet expectations, obviously that goes without saying. So that's the one thing. The other thing is like that you can look out for is that they don't. However, I want to say if they do send you a device, that's not a red flag. That's just a neutral fact. It is a green flag if they don't send you a laptop, right? Like, but if they do send you a laptop, it's neutral, right? Like it's not a red flag at all. What else? Yeah. So those male boss, male team, no device and very few meetings, right? Like you can ask about, how often does the team meet and that sort of thing. And so if they're constantly having meetings, that's usually not good, but sometimes it doesn't matter. And it's hard for you to be caught, which I know it's hard on sales, right? Because there's quotas that you have to meet and that sort of thing. But it's like, it's not that the job has to have all three of these or all four of these. It's like, if it has a combination of those, it will tend to be more sustainable in the long run. However, remember, and this just happened to me as well. I lost my main job yesterday, my J1, which I've had for 3 years. because corporate restructuring. The company started doing they didn't grow as they were expecting. They needed to shift things around, and I was a victim of it. Like it doesn't matter. I have a bajillion of the other jobs, right? It still kind of like shows that a reminder that there's nothing constant. There's no consistency in employment. That's why what is consistent is the fact that I'm out there always looking for new jobs, new opportunities, right? I'm always interviewing and I have multiple jobs, right? That is the consistency that you can get. Trying to be consistent and trying to be married to a job for however many years, that's kind of like a lot of factor, luck based basically. Like it's factored in on luck if I'm being completely honest, right? So that's why I
Right.
say just accept any offer that comes your way. Like if you're actually looking to add jobs, right? Like if you're good, like don't like then keep interviewing, keep applying, but don't necessarily accept the offer. But if you think you have the bandwidth to work another job, just accept any offer that comes your way because you don't know what's you don't know what may happen with that job or even any of the jobs that you have right now.
I love it. Yep, it's actually the exact opposite, right? A single source of income is insecure, and multiple sources of income is security. I think you tweeted that multiple times already. A lot of questions here in the chat. I'll get to these first, and then if anybody wants to come off mic or drop in the chat, we can continue on. Ryan says that what are a few signals in a job posting? We kind of already went over that, so I'm going to skip it. The G iPhone. Hi, Rolf. Big fan of your work. I wanted to get your feedback and opinion about overemployment while living overseas.
Mhm.
Effectively job stacking plus the GeoArb method for maximum cash. And do
Mhm.
you know any other online personally successful managing this that you can refer to?
Me, I do it. I originally I'm a kind of private person. I don't like exposing where I live or how I live, that sort of thing. But the Twitter algorithm docks the fact that I'm based out of South America, and so like I'm doing it. I do it. I'm stacking jobs and doing the geo arbitrage. As a matter of fact, I'm going to Paraguay later this year. I'm going to Paraguay and Panama later this year to do stuff there like Panama is financial stuff, Paraguay is residency stuff. So definitely doable. You need some tech basically. You need some to be prepared with some specific devices and have a way to like it's gonna the easier it is for you to go back to the States or Canada or whatever you are, right? Like go back to your home base where you're getting the jobs, right? Like the source of your jobs. The easier it is for you to go back or for to ship stuff back and forth, the easier it's gonna be, right? So my personal preference is Latin America because it's very easy to just book a flight to wherever and it's very easy, like it's the same continent. You can ship stuff back and forth. So for instance, if there's an issue with a laptop, right, like obviously I can't, they don't, I get a new job, they got to ship me the laptop. This is why I say that if they don't ship you a laptop, it's awesome because you don't have to worry about this. But if they do ship they are going to send me a laptop. Obviously, I'm not going to tell them like, hey, send it to my address here in Peru. I have them send it to a family member in the States that they ship it to me basically. But the address, the original address that the employer sees is within the state, so they don't get suspicious, right? Like I don't have to give any explanations. And in general, if you don't want to explain anything or ask for permission, you just do it. And if they catch you, like you better to ask for permission than to apologize, or better to apologize than to ask for permission. Sorry. So it is doable. Because like because they don't know, like as long as you don't are not disclosing it and you have your setup correctly set up, to be redundant. If you are set up to basically manage that, then it's very easy to do it, right? Like it's very easy to do it. You can do it with anything from virtual machines, right? Like where you configure a virtual machine and you configure the outbound IP to be from the place that you said you're supposed to be working from, or you have a physical router, right? Like a firewall type purple firewall type thing, or even KVM over IP. There are multiple ways to handle this. It's super doable. So I recommend people doing it, but I know, it's kind of like an added layer of difficulty. So maybe try it at home first, get the job, like work the jobs there for a little bit and then, properly set up and then leave for whatever it was that you wanted to do it. And I got a number of people on my program that are actually doing that, like that are living doing the geo arbitrage thing as well on top of job stacking. So I think the two concepts go together, right? Like it's the job stacking and residency stacking, that sort of thing. It's all the same thing. Even girl stacking is kind of like part of the same concept.
Hey, in the new iteration, we're actually having someone on tomorrow, and I was going to float this your way as well too. The card stacking. Have you heard about that? Where people are stacking the free points and getting cash back on cards?
I have heard about it. I haven't had enough time to kind of like see if it's worth my time or my guys' time, but I have heard about it and it sounds interesting.
Yeah, for sure. The last question you kind of had here, the next one was specific to sales. Honestly, I could probably handle that offline or inside of the community. But it says, where do you see the future of job stacking? Let's say 10 years from now.
I think it's going to become the default going forward for employment. I think full-time employment is going to disappear. It's going to go away, or it's going to be severely reduced because it's too much responsibility, it's too much commitment on all sides, right? So employers, it's too much on employers, right? Like the fact that they have to, they have to comply with all this laws and like the benefits and the all this the documentation and and the fact that they can't reduce your pay, that sort of thing, like it's too much, right? Like the employers have been basically letting on, right? Like they have been letting on that they cannot deal with the responsibility of being responsible for the people that work for them, which is that's supposed to be, that's the deal of employment, right? Like that's the deal of wage labor. It's like, yeah, we took you away from your subsistence household, and like we are forbidding you from doing business with somebody else, or like do work for somebody else, right? Like that's the exclusivity clause. But in exchange for your exclusivity and your time and all this stuff, we're going to take care of you, right? Like we're going to be the employer. Nobody believes in that anymore on the side of employers. It's strictly transactional. It's like we agreed to pay you this much and we pay you this much and that's it. And if your rent goes up, and we're seeing it right now with the thing with the energy crisis, with the war on Iran and that sort of thing. It's like prices go up on everything, but wages don't go up because the the employee does not set his own price. It's the employer. So the employer has to agree to, up your pay. And most of the time they're not going to do it. So they resort to downsizing, right? Like they resort to firing people, which I don't think employers like. I think it's a bad look, right? I don't think when they make the decision of laying off 30,000 people, I don't think they go like, yeah, we're going to lay off 30,000 people. This is going to be awesome, right? I think it's something that they have to do because it's mathematical and financial pressures and stuff, but it's not a good look, right? Like look at how the Amazon's reputation has tanked because of all the layoffs and all the allegations of sweatshop conditions, not only in the warehouse, but in general, right, for the company. It used to, working for Amazon used to be this aspirational thing, right? Like FANG, right? Like they used to be part of the FANG thing. The FANG thing has died off, right? Like who cares about FANG anymore, right? Like who's aspiring to be a Googler? Who's aspiring to be a Facebooker? Nobody cares anymore, right? Because we all know that you're just increasing your exposure, right? Like you're just going to be a risk. Like you're just at risk. If you're job stacking, it makes perfect sense to try to go to one of these places because you get all the upside, right? Like you get all the reputation, the money, but then you're not exposing yourself to all the risk of getting laid off and all this stuff. So I don't think employees like it. I don't think they like laying people off. I think they much rather say that they're growing, that they're hiring more people, that they're retaining more people, right? Those are happier, more, like better publicity messages, right? And so on the side of the employer, clearly they have been shrugging, right? Like they have been shrugging the responsibility from full-time employment. And on the side of employees, it's just like too much risk, right? Like it's like you're giving so much, right? Like you are providing so much and getting so little. Nobody wants to do it. So I think that we are right now. We're in the frontier, right? Like things are changing, right? Like we're in the phase where things like the old world is still alive and the new world is being born. But the new world is job stacking. It's moving forward. Like that's what's going to happen. And so in the future, every company is just going to say like, you know what? How about, like I want you, you're a good talent, right? Like I need your skills, I need your expertise. I can't pay you a bajillion dollars, which is what you're worth. I'll pay you a fraction of that, and you're free to work other jobs or whatever. Again, this is what I do with my team, and not only has it benefited me, it benefits them as well. So it's like win-win, like let's get rid of this full-time employment thing. And so eventually everybody's going to do the math, and it's just going to eventually it's just going to keep, like keep being, keep shrinking and shrinking and shrinking until it's no longer the norm, and people just having multiple jobs and engaging freely in labor, right? Like as many contracts as they can, let's put it like that, as they're capable of. That's what's going to happen, right? Like that's how labor is going to be conducted in the future.
Yeah, not to mention also the productivity increase with AI as well too. Like we're seeing it in sales. Not only is it possible to contract stack or job stack with it, we're actually becoming more and more efficient, which is increasing the income and the income ceiling with job stacking, just using tools like AI. So I think it's going to become the norm with that as well too.
Mhm.
Okay, my apologies if I mess up the name here. Sakib, he says, "Hey Rolf, appreciate your time. Just out of curiosity, what's your opinion on stacking job roles with similar skill sets with different titles? So, for example, a software dev, could you then stack a role as a DevOps engineer or a solutions architect?"
As long as you know how to keep the verticals separated and in your marketing efforts, right? So like different resume, different LinkedIn, and you don't screw up during the interview process, go for it. Like it sounds, it's perfect. It's how you safely pivot careers if you want to, right? Or expand your job search. So we do it a lot, not with software developers in the program per se, but data engineers. So like the data engineers that join my job stacking program, it's like we go for data engineer, data analyst, business analyst, like one of those three. Like we expand the search to those three areas, and it usually yields better results because you cast a wider net. So if you can do the job, you can nail the interview, right? Like for those multiple roles. You go for it. Like it's totally doable. Just keep in mind that you have to separate. Like you have to have different online presence, and you have to have a consistent, cohesive story for each vertical that you're going to pursue. So, like I said, different resume, different LinkedIn, and that's it. Like you're good to go.
Perfect segue to the next question here. Ian says, "How do you handle LinkedIn and resumes, especially if your field relies on networking?"
Yeah, like I said, just have multiple LinkedIn's completely separate. Use an alternate version of your name. Don't go for fake names, right? Because then if you do get a job, you're gonna have a lot to explain and to do. But going by alternate spelling or not spelling, like alternate versions. What I mean by this is, let's say that you have a first name and a middle name, right? And so you can have one LinkedIn profile be first name, last name, and then middle name, last name. On the internet, those are two different people. Like if you have, they're completely different names, even if the last name is the same, they're completely different people, right? And the other thing is that you have to remember that people are not looking for, or they're not searching you by name, they're searching by skill. So if you have completely separate, separated skill profiles, right? Or like what I call the verticals, right? They're not looking at, let me see if there's a whatever, the Ian Jane, Ian Doe or John Doe, software engineer, and John Doe, data engineer. Like that doesn't happen. Like if they're searching, like if the recruiter is searching for data engineer, they're gonna search for those skills, and then your profile is gonna come up, and they're not gonna know that there's another dude that's a software engineer that's the same dude, because they're not doing that search, and they're not gonna necessarily connect the dots on on a surface level, right? So go for multiple LinkedIn's, don't have any overlapping connections, completely separate, right? Separate profile picture that is still you. Don't make up stuff. Don't make up a name. You're going to screw up remembering a fake name that you made up. It's easier to just have an alternate spell, not an alternate spelling of your name, an alternate version of your name, which you can play with your first name and your last name, or your middle name and your last name. You can ask for your mother's maiden name and then use that. And then if you get asked, like you can just, like in the contract, you just say like, oh, my full legal name is this, but I go by this, right? Like that is doable. What's not doable is say that your name is Richard when your legal name is Edward, right? Like, like
Right.
that's what doesn't work. But going by, Richard Lewis, and then your legal name is Richard. Palmer, right? Like you can just tell them like, oh, I go by my mother's maiden name, like my full, or like your name is Richard, Larry Richard Lewis or something like that. That's fine. Like you can play with that. But don't be afraid to do it. LinkedIn is not right now is not catching that kind of thing, right? Like they even when they do the KYC stuff, there's not. It's kind of like the data is like it's not saved up anywhere. Like they're not checking the this guy with the same ID authenticated on this other account. Usually, the unique identifier that they go by is the emails. Just have a different email address, alternate version of your name, different story. That's it. Like you build the LinkedIn profile from the ground up. If you guys are well, no, I don't want to show my stuff. Sorry, this is not a moment. This is not the moment to show my stuff. So don't worry about it. But
Yeah.
that's how you manage it.
Typically, I just tell people put the last name and with a period after. Just abbreviate the last name, and you're not going to show up.
Yeah.
Um, okay, all good stuff. Appreciate all the questions, guys. And Ralph, appreciate you joining with us again. It's always a pleasure having you on. It sounded like there was possibly another book that's in the works.
Yeah, I've been working on the final, the final version the ultimate version of the job stacking, right? Where I talk about all this new developments that I've witnessed over the years, this new historical and theoretical understanding of wage labor. It's just like it just something new keeps coming up every day, right? Like we keep discovering, like this is the frontier. We're in the frontier, so we discover a new gold mine every day, and so like the book gets pushed, right? And things
Right.
also are developing so quickly. Like for instance, if you see my content from like 3 years ago, I totally downplay LinkedIn. I say like, hey, you don't need LinkedIn. As a matter of fact, I treat LinkedIn almost like a liability. It's like, hey, like if you feel uncomfortable about getting discovered on LinkedIn, then don't have one, right? Right now, that has shifted. At least I don't know how it is in well, I do know how it is in sales, but in more normal, jobs that are not sales, LinkedIn has become like the tool to land a job, right? So now, like if I had published the book, the second, the second edition of the book, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it would already be deprecated. It would already be outdated because now the advice changed to like, be super into LinkedIn. Like you have a really
Right.
good optimized online presence on LinkedIn. So that's why it keeps pushing back. And so, like, if you want to see the developments, you got to follow me on Twitter because that's how you walk with me on the journey. Walk with me in the journey. And the book will be ready when I'm like, all right. It seems like we're at a equilibrium point now,
Right.
and the book can come out now. But things are just keep developing and keep developing.
So you mentioned Twitter. Is that the best place for people to get in contact with you? Follow the new meta as it continues to change.
Yeah, so there's, I'd say YouTube, so the job stacking YouTube channel, Twitter, the two accounts, so Rolf, at Rolf Haltza and at job underscore stacking. Those two accounts, or those three things are the basically the main platforms where we share stuff. Like the Rolf account, it's actually me, right? So like actually if you DM me, it's me. The job stacking YouTube channel, well, the job stacking YouTube channel and the Twitter account. The Twitter account is 100% the community manager, who's a guy that's been with me since the beginning. The job stack, he's very knowledgeable about it, right? And he comes up with a lot of content that I don't feed him. He on his own comes up with these insights. So the account is still valuable to follow, even if you already follow me, right? And then the YouTube channel is kind of hybrid where I pay attention to it. But it's also managed by a community manager, but the content is all me, right? Like it's like my face, like I come up with, I upload the videos and all that. So I'd say those three places are the bless. I'm growing the LinkedIn network as well. So if you want, you can, I can drop the link because I mean, if you do Rolf Haltza, you're gonna. I don't want people finding some of my other profiles, so let me give you the correct one, like the one that I use for log interfacing here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll drop links also too inside of the community chat here after of the Twitter and YouTube.
Yeah, LinkedIn, it's still me, but it's a bit more tame, corporate version, right? Because the LinkedIn style, Twitter is me uncensored, right? So,
I love it. Well, talk to people if they're listening to this conversation, or maybe they're already job stacking right now, but they need a tune up, or they just want to have a little bit more of one-on-one support? Like, what are the programs, what are the offerings that you guys currently have?
Yeah, so you can schedule right now I have a discount. So like you can schedule a one-on-one with me where a strategy call, right? It's usually $600, but I have it discounted for the foreseeable future or like until the oh, wait, it's actually May. It was supposed to be until the end of April, but whatever. I'll extend it for a little bit longer. For 27 bucks, you can schedule a full one-on-one strategy session with me. This is not a sales call. It's a full strategy call where like you're going to tell me your current situation, and I'm going to try to provide the best strategy or the playbook for you to implement in the near future, right? Or like implement right now. It's what I mean. If you're like you already know you want to work with me, you want to join the program. We actually have a full mentorship with guarantee like 6 month. Like we guarantee that we'll be able to land you at two fully remote jobs in 6 months. And if we don't do it, we work the next 6 months totally for free. And there's a success fee. We waive that fee as well. But I'd say for now, like you can interact with me on Twitter. I'm very generous with my time, right? Like, but if you have like if you want to like a more in-depth, like my full attention, right? Like my full attention in real time, you can go to jobstacking.com, put it here, jobstacking.com/start now and follow the funnel to schedule a call with me. Again, discounted. Like I usually charge $600 to have a one-on-one call with me, unless you're part of the mentorship, and then you get like infinity one-on-one calls with me. But if you're not part of the mentorship, go there, and for 27 bucks, you can schedule a one-on-one. We'll go over your situation, right? Like
Love
I said,
it.
if not, like just send me a DM. Just shoot me a DM on Twitter. Like I said, like I'm very generous with my time. I'm not gonna like I'm not I'm not gonna shut you off, because whatever you're not part of the community or whatever. Like I'm very open with my time.
Love it. Awesome. Well, I'll make sure that I reshare these links outside of the Zoom, inside of the community. Rolf,
Mhm.
again, it's always a pleasure. Appreciate your time. And like you said, working on the frontier of what job stacking looks like. Have a great start to your weekend.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you all of you guys. Awesome questions, and yeah, talk to you guys later. It's been very fun.
See you soon. Thanks.